Hello, everyone. We are thrilled to have you join Registrar Corp's webinar for food safety and labeling, best practices for compliant labels. We'll be discussing ingredient and labeling regulations for food products distributed in the US, and we will also see the impact that both ingredient and labeling requirements have on food safety. Slide, please. I'm proud to introduce Anna Benavente, Registrar Corp's Director of Product Labeling and Ingredient Review, who will be leading this webinar. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the College of William and Mary in the state of Virginia and has over 15 years of experience in analytical research. Since joining Registrar Corp in 2009, her team has reviewed over 13,000 products for compliance. Throughout this webinar, feel free to write any questions in the Q&A box, and we've save some time at the end to answer them. We will email the link of the recording to all registrants so you can refer to it at any time and share with your teams or colleagues. Once you leave the webinar, you will see a short survey. Please do not leave without providing your valuable feedback to us. Without any further ado, I leave you with our labeling expert, Anna Benavente.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for that kind introduction, Fabiola. I'm very excited to be able to present to you all today. These are the topics that we will be covering in our webinar. First, we will discuss what every food company must know before they start marketing food products in the US, FDA's oversight of foods, and two very important questions that every company must ask related to their ingredients and their labels. In our next section, we'll describe how a company determines if their product's ingredients are okay. We'll go over how FDA regulates food ingredients and designates them as safe, and common mistakes made by food companies before they sell. We'll follow up with the labeling requirements that all food labels must meet. All of the general mandatory labeling elements will be described with a special focus on the nutrition label and the allergen declaration. We'll also go over additional labeling considerations such as nutrient and organic claims. Finally, we'll present to you Registrar Corp's solutions to help your company achieve compliance and ensure trouble-free markets in the US. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Registrar Corp, we are a firm that specializes in FDA regulatory compliance with over 30,000 clients across 175 countries. We have 20 offices worldwide to assist our clients in their time zones and languages. We are very proud to have a high level of satisfaction from our customers and over 20 years of service to companies in the food, supplement, cosmetic, drug, and device industries. Our label review team of experienced professionals hold multiple advanced degrees in the areas of biology, chemistry, quality management, botany, human nutrition, pharmaceutical sciences, and cosmetic science. We have reviewed over 13,000 products for compliance and take enormous pride in ensuring that our clients meet FDA's requirements for food formulation and labeling. As most people know, the US food market is incredibly large, with revenues of almost $1 trillion projected by the end of 2024. For many companies, marketing foods in the US is a significant way to increase the value and financial growth of their businesses. Companies that successfully sell products in the US can often count upon a consistent revenue stream in a market that continues to expand. However, many pitfalls can occur between a company and its financial windfall in the US market. FDA regulations are strict, so a company must ask itself before it begins, what do I need to know? In the next section of this webinar, we'll describe how a company should ensure that its food products are appropriate for the US market. For a quick recap, who actually has jurisdiction over food? Well, the US Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has jurisdiction over most foods in the US market. Under their authority, they issue strict regulations regarding what ingredients may be used in food products. They also have complicated regulations that govern the labeling of food products. These regulations specify what must appear on the label, as well as rules regarding claims being made about the products. Many companies make the critical mistake of thinking that FDA regulations only apply to domestic U.S. producers, but this is not the case. Imported foods must also comply with these regulations upon entry. FDA inspects food import and will not release products that have improper ingredients or labeling, even if the importer intends to change the label after it arrives. Products must be compliant when they arrive at the port of entry. Smart companies will ask themselves two important questions before marketing their food product in the US. 1, are my ingredients permitted? 2, is the labeling correct? These two issues are extremely common causes of problems, particularly for imported foods in US ports. A company may ask itself why this matters. Many companies market their products for years without any issues. However, it is important to note that FDA does conduct inspections in port, particularly on goods from new shippers. If a non-compliant product is found, it is usually detained. Rarely will FDA let non-compliant goods in with only a warning. If a product has an illegal ingredient, it will usually be refused entry, since there's no way to remove it from the product. Products with labeling errors can be relabeled if the importer petitions FDA successfully. However, this process is expensive and time-consuming, as FDA must approve the petition and then inspect the goods after relabeling. This process can take months to resolve and can easily damage your business relationships. Also, a package with stickers covering the non-compliant information is not very attractive, and it could negatively impact sales to consumers. Violations can result in a company being placed on import alert. In this case, all future shipments will be detained without any inspection by FDA. This can cripple your business in the US. US-based companies may also face enforcement action from FDA. FDA monitors products that are marketed by US companies and may issue warning letters when the agency becomes aware of non-compliant products. FDA can also order seizure of products or injunction against companies who are in violation. FDA can also require companies to recall products that are in violation, for example, those that do not meet allergen labeling requirements. The consequences of non-compliance can be extremely severe. A few years ago, we assisted a large chocolate manufacturer who had 3 shipments of their chocolate stopped in early December. They were detained based on violations of the general labeling requirements we're going to discuss today. They were destined for fancy department stores to be sold for the Christmas season. We submitted petitions to request permission to label, but FDA did not respond for 2 months. It's important to understand that when you are detained, you are on their time clock, and FDA moves very slowly. Once approved, it took a few weeks to get stickers on all of the packages, and then FDA took a few weeks to come out and confirm that they were now in compliance. They were not released until 4 months after they were initially detained. So this company missed the holiday shopping season and Valentine's Day as well, and it was a big blow to their business. Proper labels would have prevented this fiasco. We had a similar situation with a seasoning product that was labeled and sold in the Chinese market, but brought to the US by an importer interested in selling it here. FDA detained it for labeling violations, including the lack of a nutrition facts chart. FDA refused to accept nutrient values from the manufacturer, though, and insisted that the products be tested by a US laboratory. They gave the importer a very short timeline to respond, so the importer was forced to pay for an expedited analysis by the US lab before we could even begin to create the new label. The importer successfully relabeled the product, but FDA took a long time to come out and inspect the shipment, so the entire process took about 3 months. The takeaway here is that detentions are expensive, time-consuming, and a huge problem for your supply chain, so they should be avoided at all costs. So how does one go about figuring out whether the products are okay or might be in danger of being detained or other enforcement action? You have 2 basic steps to eliminate some of this risk. 1, is my formulation okay? Conduct a check of your ingredients to make sure that they are permitted in the US. Then select only those products with formulations that will be acceptable to FDA. 2. Is my labeling okay? For these selected products, review the labeling and revise as necessary before shipping or marketing your products. Remember, relabeling in port is expensive and time-consuming if FDA even allows you to do it. Prevent the need for relabeling by making sure it's correct before you start shipping or marketing in the US. Many companies are uncertain as to how to determine if their ingredients are acceptable for the US market. In this section of the webinar, we'll explain how FDA regulates ingredients and where they publish their regulations. FDA has 3 classifications for ingredients: food additives, substances that are generally recognized as safe, also called GRAS, and color additives. By law, all substances added to food must be approved by FDA through the Food Additive Petition process, unless they are generally recognized as safe. GRAS substances are recognized as safe for their intended use by qualified experts, either through scientific procedures or through a history of use in food. Color additives, even those from natural sources, must all be approved by FDA. They are never considered GRAS. In order to figure out if your ingredients fall into one of these categories, you will need to research some specific resources. The U.S. Code of Federal Regulations includes all of the food additives and color additives that have been approved by FDA. This also includes regulations where FDA has affirmed certain substances are GRAS. It is important to pay close attention to the regulations, as they will tell you exactly what products and intended uses are covered. For example, some may be permitted generally in food, but others may be limited only to a particular type of food or for certain specific uses. GRAS status is not limited to these FDA GRAS affirmations. GRAS status is based upon the opinion of the scientific community as a whole. So companies are permitted to self-affirm that an ingredient is GRAS using data that is public or privately held. If a company chooses to self-affirm an ingredient as GRAS, then they should make sure that they have the data available in the event that FDA requests proof of their ingredient's status. FDA has a process by which a company may submit what is called a GRAS notice to inform FDA that they have determined an ingredient as GRAS. FDA may then respond whether they have any questions or concerns regarding the company's data and affirmation. Unfortunately, many companies don't perform any sort of compliance check on their products prior to marketing and find out the hard way that their ingredients are not permitted in the US market. One of the most common mistakes are illegal colors, because FDA must approve every color additive, even those from safe natural sources. Colors common in other markets, such as Ponceau 4R and Carmosine, are not permitted in the US. Another common color additive issues concern colors that are subject to batch certification requirement from FDA. For these colors, a sample from the actual batch must be sent to FDA for them to test it. For example, Allura Red must be certified by FDA as FD&C Red number 40. Brilliant Blue is another example. It must be certified as FD&C Blue number 1. Other ingredients that can cause issues are artificial sweeteners such as cyclamates and dulcin, which are not approved by FDA. Recently, FDA issued a final order that essentially bans partially hydrogenated oils due to their trans fat content. Products from other markets where they are permitted should not be sent to the US. Stevia, which is a very popular sweetener now, has purity specifications that must be met. FDA has an import alert for it, along with other ingredients such as tamarind, where FDA will stop these products and force the importer to prove that they meet FDA's requirements before entering the US market. And finally, CBD. CBD is confusing because individual states in the US permit it, but at the federal level, it is not permitted to be added to food. Once a company has determined that their products are formulated correctly for the US market, it is still incredibly important that the labeling be reviewed to ensure that it is compliant. For non-US companies, the labeling is the first thing an FDA compliance officer will see when your product arrives in port. For US companies, labeling is a very common cause for warning letters issued by the agency. In this section of the webinar, we'll discuss the mandatory labeling requirements for food products. There are certain statements that must always appear on food labeling, some shown here, that we will discuss in depth in the next few slides. First and foremost is the statement of identity, what the product actually is. FDA requires that it be the name specified by law, the common or usual name used in the marketplace, but not a brand name, or a fanciful name understood by the general public. So for example, most of us are probably familiar with the brand Oreo and understand what that is, but that is not a statement of identity. Oreo labels include a statement of identity, chocolate sandwich cookies, to meet this requirement. Some products are subject to what is called a standard of identity. This is when FDA dictates what the characteristics are for a product identified by a particular name. This can include permitted ingredients and certain manufacturing methods that must be followed. Examples include ice cream, jam, margarine, and peanut butter. There are about 280 standards of identity, so you will want to determine if your product is subject to one. The statement of identity is also subject to special requirements based on flavor declarations, if there are juice ingredients, when the product is in a specific form, and more. The next mandatory statement that we'll discuss is the net quantity of contents. You must declare the actual quantity of product in the container. Solid and viscous products are declared by weight and must include the term or abbreviation for net weight. Liquid products are to be declared in terms of volume. You must include both metric and imperial terms of measurement. This is another common cause for detention. For example, a product that declares its weight in grams but does not include the amount in ounces. Every food product label needs to declare either the manufacturer, packer, or distributor. You may choose any of these three options to meet this requirement. Note that it must include the actual corporate name and full address, although you may omit the street address if it is found in a local directory. FDA must have a way to contact the responsible party if they discover a problem with the product. For this reason, PO boxes don't meet this requirement. Most foods, except for single ingredient foods, must declare all their ingredients on the package. Most of these ingredients must be declared by their common or usual name. For example, no E or INS numbers may be used. Most have to be declared individually and not grouped together in parentheses. They must be in descending order by weight. And there are some exceptions to the rules, though, for certain ingredients such as flavors, colors, and some spices. Recently, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, issued new rules regarding the disclosure of bioengineered ingredients. USDA maintains a list of foods that are generally considered to be genetically modified. If your food product has an ingredient on that list, or if you know that any ingredient in your food is the product of bioengineering, then you must disclose it on the label. USDA gives several options, including a symbol, and even though this rule was issued by USDA, it impacts FDA-regulated product labeling as well. While not an FDA requirement, it's important to know that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection has a labeling requirement for the country of origin. This is the country where the last substantial transformation took place, and it must appear on all retail food labels. You may only use abbreviations for countries that are deemed acceptable by customs. So for example, PRC is not considered an acceptable abbreviation for China, as a US consumer may not be familiar with it and would not realize that it stands for the People's Republic of China. The next and usually most difficult part of mandatory food labeling is the nutrition facts label. FDA has very specific requirements for format, content, and type sizes. Unlike some markets where nutrition labeling is simply based on 100 grams or 100 milliliter amounts, for FDA nutrition charts, a serving size must be declared based on the reference amount for that exact food as established by FDA. There are additional dual column chart requirements for products and packages that might be consumed in a single sitting as well. There are also different formats for infant and toddler foods and when there's more than one product in a package. We've pulled together some examples from other countries to illustrate how different the FDA chart is. Here you can see the US FDA chart compared to charts from the UK, Australia, and Mexico. Here you can see the US FDA chart compared to charts from Canada, Argentina, and China. Again, very different. So it is obvious to FDA inspectors when a product comes in with a label that is not in compliance with this requirement. Any inspector that sees this mistake is bound to detain the product and refuse it unless the importer petitions for permission to relabel it. FDA has multiple chart formats that are permitted on food labeling, subject to certain conditions. To the left, we see the simplified format, which is permitted on certain products that don't have a lot of nutrient value. On the upper right side of the panel and at the bottom of the panel, we see two tabular charts that are permitted on certain size packaging. The first one is permitted when a label panel is less than 3 inches tall. The other is permitted on certain smaller packages that can't fit the standard chart. And in the middle is the linear format, permitted only on very small packaging. If you choose to use any of these nutrition facts panels, you must make sure that your package and your product qualify. FDA's newest regulations for nutrition labeling include mandatory dual column formats for containers that are between 200 and 300% of an FDA reference amount for that food, and also in cases where the product is in a unit, like a muffin, that is between 200 and 300% of the reference amount. The chart must show the nutrient values for the serving size, but also have a column for the entire container or the entire unit. This ensures that a consumer is aware of the nutrient values, should they eat the entire package or the entire unit. Allergens are an important part of food labeling and a very common cause for product recalls and other similar issues. Accurate allergen declarations are a significant safety and labeling issue. FDA has 9 mandatory food allergens that require disclosure: milk, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish, but not molluscan, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, soybeans, and sesame. You may declare them as part of the ingredient name, such as wheat flour, in parentheses next to the ingredient in the list, or declare all of them in a contains statement adjacent to the list. Food safety professionals must be aware that allergens can be a significant safety issue. According to Forbes magazine, half of all food recalls in 2023 were related to undeclared allergens on the labeling, an 8% increase from the year before. Some of this increase may be due to the addition of sesame to the list of allergens in 2023, with companies unaware and therefore their labels lacking the declaration. As we can all imagine, undeclared allergens are a significant regulatory and also legal liability. If a consumer has an allergic reaction to your product and it was not properly labeled, it could open your firm to the threat of legal action and significant financial losses. In order to mitigate this risk, companies must confirm that all allergens are declared on the labeling and implement procedures to ensure accuracy. This means having a deep understanding of not only the ingredients in your products, but also the source ingredients that might contain allergens. For example, if your lecithin has soy or your modified starches from wheat, these need to be disclosed. If you use flavor ingredients that are just declared as natural flavor on the labeling, it won't be immediately apparent if they are derived from a major allergen like fish or egg. So even though present in minute amounts, processing aids could potentially trigger an allergenic response and might need to be included in the allergen declaration. Sometimes allergens become present due to cross-contamination in the food processing facility. In such cases, it may be smart to add advisory labeling, such as may contain or produced on equipment that also processes the allergen. FDA acknowledges the use of these sorts of statements, but does warn companies that they are not a suitable replacement for rigorous manufacturing practices to mitigate the chance that cross-contamination takes place. In addition to regulations regarding the mandatory statements that must appear, FDA has a maze of regulations related to other labeling issues, such as claims. FDA dictates when such claims can be made. For example, nutrient content claims refer to levels of a nutrient in the food, such as high in fiber, low fat, and healthy. FDA sets nutrient levels that must be met in order for the label to bear the claim. Health claims refer to a risk reduction in disease that may occur due to consumption of the food. A health claim must be pre-approved by FDA. Structure function claims reference the effects to the structure or function of the body due to consumption of the food. These claims are not pre-approved by FDA, but must be truthful and based on the nutritive value of the food. Another common labeling element are additional languages. Note that your labels must have all mandatory statements in English. If any other language is present, then all mandatory statements must appear in that language too. Brand names or mottos may be exempt from this requirement though, as they do not convey material information about the product. Due to a strong marketing advantage and consumer desire for clean labels, organic foods are now a significant part of the U.S. market. In order to make this claim, your food will need to be certified by an agent that is accredited by the USDA. The claim itself will be based upon the percentage of organic ingredients in the product, and the agent's information must appear on the label. Companies need to be vigilant in ensuring that their labels meet FDA's requirements. Here are 5 common mistakes, many of which I found on a detention notice this morning for a company that did not do a compliance check before shipping. They have 9 different tea products sitting in port with many of these labeling violations. It's very common for other markets to permit declaring ingredients by E or INS numbers, but that is not the case here. We often see companies using nutrition charts that are only permitted on small packages, not understanding the limitations of their use. Savvy FDA inspectors will spot this and detain the product. Because the majority of the world relies on the metric system, many labels arrive in the US without the mandatory declaration in ounces or fluid ounces. It's also very common for labels to bear claims such as high in vitamin A, but the product does not have enough of the nutrient to qualify. And last but not least, if there's any non-English statement on your label, you will probably need to reproduce all of the mandatory statements in that language. We hope that the information that we've presented gives you a good overview on how to check your product's formulation and labeling to determine if it will meet FDA's requirements. If you still find that the rules and regulations are too confusing or want an expert to look over your products before you start marketing, Registrar Corp is here to help. Registrar Corp has many solutions to help you make sure your labels meet FDA's requirements. We offer varying levels of assistance with our full label comply review, label check report, ingredient review, and nutrition facts services. We also have a do-it-yourself service called a la carte that many companies find helpful. We also offer consulting by the hour if you have any other questions or concerns that require an experienced regulatory affairs professional. As I mentioned before, it's critical to make sure that your formulation consists only of ingredients that are permitted in the U.S. market, as well as making sure that the labeling is correct. Our Label Comply service gives you one-on-one assistance with an experienced regulatory specialist who will do a complete evaluation of your ingredients and labeling. We conduct a thorough analysis of the label for each of the mandatory statements that we've discussed today and make recommendations for changes to bring your label and product into compliance. We issue a report that includes all of our recommendations, and we will provide you with a print-ready graphic that has been revised to be in compliance with FDA's labeling requirements. This service also includes a 30-day period where you can ask questions and an extra round of graphic changes to the revised label at no additional charge. It's truly everything you need in one solution. Registrar Corp takes compliance very seriously. We put in hours and hours of research into our labeling services and stand by our work. So this is our promise to you. Any client that uses our Label Comply service can count on our continued support as long as they use our revised label. If FDA questions the compliance of any label we produce, Registrar Corp will intervene at no cost to you. We will communicate with FDA on your behalf and explain how the labeling regulations were applied to your product label. This can involve submitting testimony of admissibility that includes all of the regulatory citations that we use to develop your compliant label. We have found that sometimes FDA officers may mistakenly stop products that are actually in compliance. This happens actually a couple of times a year. It's more common than you might think. And in such cases, Registrar Corp intervenes to secure release of the product. We will do this for as long as you use our label, no expiration date. Again, this can happen a few times a year. FDA officers are smart and professional, but they are not always labeling specialists. So let Registrar Corp be your partner in ensuring that you have trouble-free marketing in the US. Now, if you're feeling pretty confident that your product label is compliant, but you still want the reassurance of a group of experienced regulatory specialists looking it over, Registrar Corp offers our label check report option. Our team will look over the 10 mandatory elements that should appear on your food label and give you guidance regarding any potential issues that we find and instructions on what changes you should make prior to exporting into the US. A report will summarize the changes, and you'll receive 30 minutes of consultation after delivery to go over our findings. For companies that are still in the process of developing their formulations or that are concerned that their ingredients may not be approved in the US, Registrar Corp's Ingredients Review Service can provide peace of mind prior to export. We will review all of the ingredients in your products to verify that the ingredients are either affirmed as safe, approved as food additives, or approved as color additives by FDA. If you're feeling pretty confident about your labeling, but do want some help with that complicated nutrition facts label, Registrar Corp offers a service that will give you one-on-one assistance from a regulatory specialist who will help you figure out the proper reference amount and serving size for your product, as well as the proper modified label format that may be permitted for your product and package. We will provide you with a print-ready graphic and a report that details each recommendation and regulation that was used to develop your nutrition facts label. As I mentioned before, sometimes our labels get stopped that are actually in compliance. This is what you would use to prove to FDA that, or we would prove to FDA on your behalf, that your nutrition facts label is in compliance and permitted. For companies that have a good working knowledge of the nutrition facts requirements, Registrar Corp also offers a do-it-yourself solution. Our nutrition labeling software and recipe management tool called AllaCalc will help you produce your nutrition labeling for the US, excuse me, and other markets. Our software solution offers downloadable charts for the US, UK, Canadian, Mexican, and EU markets based off of a single recipe for the product. It is a subscription-based with lots of flexibility depending on your needs. Are you unsure whether your product labels are compliant for the US market? We're here to help. You may send your product labels to us for a free assessment. We will check to see if they appear to have any compliance issues related to the mandatory labeling requirements we discussed today. Our team of regulatory advisors will provide you with our comments and can give you information regarding our services in case you need to change your labels before you ship the products to the US. We have many other ways that we can help you as you export your foods to the US. Registrar Corp offers a full range of compliance services, all of which are fixed fee. So you know what you're spending before we start. We can assist you with many FDA requirements, such as the food facility registration and US agent requirement, prior notice, labeling, low acid and canned food requirements, food safety plans and services to meet the requirements of the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. We can also help you if your products are being detained or are on import alert. If you get detained, don't give up right away. Send us your FDA's notice of detention for a free assessment, and we can see if and how you may be able to get them released. We're also pleased to announce the launch of our label review services for Canada and Mexico. We offer the Label Comply and Label Check services to prepare your product labeling so that you may market your product in Canada. We also have the Label Comply service along with the constancia necessary to ensure your product labels compliance in the Mexican market. So if you plan to market in either country, please reach out to us if you need any assistance. We have a special discount for you all as our thanks for attending our webinar today. You will receive $200 off the full Label Comply service or $100 off the Label Check service between now and December 31st. Simply mention it to your regulatory advisor and the discount will be applied. Thank you all so much for your time and attention today. We appreciate it, and I hope you found it helpful. We will also have a drawing for a free 1-hour consultation with me from those attendees who complete our post-webinar survey. When our webinar ends, you will see a pop-up message inviting you to take the survey. Please take the survey and let us know how we did. We welcome all feedback and suggestions for this or for any future webinars you might like to see. Fabiola and I love giving webinars, so if you have topics that you would like for us to address, please let us know. I will reach out to the winner directly to make arrangements for our consultation. And with that, we will open up the webinar for any questions that you may have. Please feel free to add them to the Q&A box at the top of your screen. And with that, we'll go ahead and see what's in store for me. Please do add your questions as you see fit. We'll try and get to them all and answer any questions that you may have. Okay, so the first question I'm looking at, can you explain the bioengineered food disclosure? So in essence, USDA has a list of about 15 foods that they've just determined are probably genetically engineered. And so if you have one of those foods, the most common ones would be corn or soy. If you have those foods in your product and you can't prove that they're not genetically modified, then what you need to do is put either a symbol or a statement that the product contains a bioengineered ingredient. And in doing that, then you will meet the requirement. Also, if you have direct knowledge that any of your ingredients are genetically modified, then you'll want to use that symbol or that statement on your labeling. Okay. Our next question is the labeling or statements the same in all 50 states? Excellent question. So generally speaking, Most states follow the FDA's lead when it comes to food labeling. Some may have some other requirements, California being the most notable exception. So if you are marketing in California, I would suggest contacting your distributor to see if there's anything else you may need to have on your labeling. But generally speaking, they all follow the FDA guidelines. In our country, generally speaking, the federal law can trump state law if they're in direct conflict, but you will want to know if there's an additional requirement that a certain state may have. I see some people are raising hands, and so unfortunately I don't have a way to address you in that manner, so please do put your questions in the Q&A box. Okay, let's see our next question. I see a question. Basically, they are 0 grams, and I believe this may be in reference to the simplified nutrition facts chart. So generally speaking, to use the simplified nutrition facts chart, FDA has a list of nutrients where if 8 of them are either 0 or at a level that allows you to declare as 0, then they can be omitted from the chart. And so you just simply have to analyze per serving whether or not your particular product has the 8 of those in 0 amounts so that you can use the simplified chart. Okay, let's see. So next question, can you please repeat the part of the quantity regulation? Certainly. So solid or viscous products will need to declare net weight or net WT as an abbreviation. And then you'll need to have both the imperial and the metric. So ounce in grams, ounce in kilograms. If you have a pound or more, then you would put in a pound declaration. Similarly, for liquid products, you declare by volume. There's no net volume type phrase that goes with it, although you can declare net contents voluntarily if you want to. But in that case, you'll be declaring fluid ounces, milliliters or liters. If you have a pint or more, then you would have to declare the number of pints or quarts as well. Okay, let's see our next question. Let's see, sorry, let me just go ahead and open this up so I can. Good morning. When the FDA was created, what was the correct way to describe homemade products? So if you are a home-based business that is marketing products, you're going to be exempt from some of the requirements that FDA has, like for nutrition labeling, but you'll still need to adhere to most of the other labeling requirements. There's not really a regulation in terms of the claim homemade, so you would just have to be prepared to substantiate that if FDA ever questioned it. Okay, let's see. Let's see. I have a question. Can you show the slide that had 9 all of the allergen names? I'm not sure I could easily go back in our platform, but if you reach out, I'm happy to provide those to you by email. Please do email me if you have any questions. You can find me at abenavente@registrarcorp.com. Okay, let's see. Question about dietary supplements. The names of botanical substances in dietary supplements should be listed according to the Herbs of Commerce or botanical names that are suitable for the US market. So in terms of dietary supplements, the first source you should use is Herbs of Commerce, 2nd edition. If your ingredient is present in that edition, then you'll want to use the name that it provides. If it's not present, then we tend to use either FDA or USDA and any common name that's been established by either of those agencies for a biological ingredient. Okay, let's see. Okay, next question is about allergen labeling. So just to recap, is the may contain statement accepted by FDA? So yes, the law itself only addresses allergens that are included as ingredients. And so again, the 9 that are present due to ingredients. However, because of cross-contamination, then sometimes allergens are present. And in that case, FDA has acknowledged use of the may contain statement. They have not issued any sort of law or regulation related to it, but they have issued published notices acknowledging its use, asking industry for comments about how it should be phrased or what sort of phrases they find to be helpful in making consumers understand. So in essence, we always recommend, if you think there's a chance of cross-contamination, to go ahead and use may contain or a similar statement like processed on equipment that also processes flour or wheat or something along those lines. Okay, let's see. Next question. I'm preparing to ship goods from Vietnam to an Amazon warehouse. Our factory moved from address A to address B this year, so the label still has address A. However, the address declared on the FDA certificate is the new address. I don't know if there's any way to accept this case. So if the address for the firm is the old address on the label, but the firm is now located at a different address, we strongly recommend, even though it's going to be a hassle, to put the new address, even a small sticker that has the correct address on the packages. FDA allows for stickers as long as they are firmly affixed, because you will want to make sure that that address is accurate on the label when it enters the US market. Okay, so next question, where can we find the resources that are providing the guidelines to follow when producing labels for food products? So the resources that we've been talking about, most of it is available on the FDA's webpage. So you can find links into the Code of Federal Regulations. There are hundreds of guidance documents. It's kind of a treasure trove of information all on the FDA website, but it can be hard to sort of parcel through, just to warn you. But there is where you will find warning letters, you will find import alerts, import refusals, lots of information about how FDA regulates these different products. And so that's the first place to begin. If you're trying to do this on your own, the FDA website is the first place to start. Okay, let's see. Okay, next question, is it correct to put the warning phrase at the end of list of ingredients, may contain or produced on equipment? So this is an interesting question because FDA requires that the nutrition chart, the ingredients, and the declaration of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor appear together with no intervening information. The law allows for the declaration of allergens, contains wheat, contains milk, contains egg, to be part of that. But nowhere in the law or regulation does it state that may contain or produced on equipment can intervene all of that information. So what we tend to do is put that either after all that information or off to the side so that those three elements appear together without any intervening information. In essence, the chart, the ingredients, manufacturer, packer, distributor, all together. So again, may contain, I would put off to the side so that it's near the ingredients, but it can't actually interfere with that information. Okay. Okay. Next question. Will the FDA check the validity of the nutrition facts on the label? Excellent question. We have seen in detentions where FDA has tested the product for, done nutrition testing on a product to see whether or not the values are accurate. So it is important to have accurate values. Now, FDA does understand that, where you source your ingredient, different fruits or vegetables might have differing amounts depending on the season. They understand that there's going to be some variability. So the regulation for nutrition labeling includes about a 20% variance allowance for those nutrient values. But of course, the best thing is to make them as accurate as possible, particularly if there isn't any sort of seasonal variability in the nutritive value of your ingredients. Okay, let's see. Next question, for the purpose of exports, I'm presuming exporting to the US, what particular website do I have to follow regarding food labeling? So again, the food labeling, you'll find all the information is on the FDA website. There's a lot of it, just to warn you. The Code of Federal Regulations has the regulations for nutrition labeling, and then there are also guidance documents available. I will warn you though, the FDA's food labeling guide, if you come across the food labeling guide from 2013, the nutrition facts label changed in 2016. So that information is no longer valid. You do not want to put the pre-2016 nutrition chart on your labeling. It is no longer permitted. So if you find the Food Labeling Guide 2013 edition, you pretty much can follow all of it except for the part about the nutrition label. Okay. Oh, okay. Question, do electronics need the US FDA? Is this true? So yes, actually, there is a certain aspect of electronics that gets regulated by FDA. And that is because any electronic device that emits radiation that can impact the human body as we use it, microwave ovens, lasers are the two that come to mind, huge X-ray machines, because the radiation can impact the human body, there is a set of warnings and reporting requirements associated with those types of products that are required by FDA. Registrar Corp can assist you with this. Actually, we have a department that is dedicated to radiation emitting devices. So if you have one, please feel free to reach out. We can let you know, how our services might be able to assist you with whatever radiation emitting device you're manufacturing or importing. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Are the coconut fruits required to follow FDA labels and standards to be imported from Asian countries to the US? And if they do, which standards? So coconut products, depending on the form. So if you have fresh coconuts, they're going to be subject to US FDA, but also the USDA, because the USDA is our government agency that is concerned with plant pests and plant disease and that sort of thing. So they will have some limitations on which sorts of fruits and agricultural products can come in from certain countries. So you'll have to pay attention to both. If the products are frozen, then the requirements aren't as great, although it is still FDA and USDA combined. If you're using coconut as an ingredient in a finished product, then generally speaking, it's only going to be subject to FDA regulation, and everything we've talked about today will apply. Okay, let's see. Okay, next question. The package mentions a producer, but the address and information placed on the label is from the import company only. Is this correct? So the FDA requirement is only for one of the three to appear: manufacturer, packer, distributor. So if your importer is also a distributor, then you're meeting the requirement based on that information. In this case, if that information is complete, then you could declare the producer, but not have to worry about having the address and all of the rest of the information. You would still meet that minimum requirement. Okay. So you have a question about a gluten-free claim. Is there specific documentation or paper needed to claim that? Excellent question. So gluten-free is a claim that's regulated by FDA. There's a regulation, I think it's 101.91 maybe, don't quote me on that, but it's in the section 101 of our Code of Federal Regulations. It specifies, which species of triticum are considered to be gluten, and any other gluten containing wheats and grains. It also establishes, I believe it's a 20 parts per million limit. There's no submission that you have to make prior to marketing a product as gluten-free. However, you should, of course, maintain documentation to prove that the products do meet FDA's limits for a product that's considered gluten-free. Okay, let's see, next question. Sorry, let me find one that I haven't covered yet. Question, how can I get nutritional information for imported nuts? There's a number of ways that you can do this. So if you have a product of, say, mixed nuts, and you need to get your nutritional values, you can pay for nutritional analysis by a lab. That is very expensive though, but it's going to be 100% accurate, most likely. But then you can also use nutrient databases. So FDA understands that it's cost prohibitive to do nutritional analysis on every single product a company might market for most companies. So they allow you to use these nutrient databases. And I'm going to put in a plug for AllaCalc right now. So AllaCalc, I mentioned that do-it-yourself software. It allows you to pull verified nutrient information from the USDA database, COFAPRI, the UK standards database, all these different verified databases to actually pull together all of the nutrition information. And it's done by putting a recipe in. So if you had a mixed nuts product, maybe that had a pound of walnuts, a pound of almonds, a pound of pecans, a pound of cashews, it will organize all of that, all those nutrient amounts. And then depending on your serving size, so if you had a 30-gram serving size, it will produce nutrition charts for you that are accurate based on those verified databases. So I strongly encourage you to check out AllaCalc if that's the type of information that you need to generate your nutrition information and your nutrition charts. Okay, next question is about organic packaging. For the agent on organic packaging, would it be the manufacturer or the co-packer agent that needs to be on the packaging? So for the organic claim, your product is going to have to be certified by a company or an agent that is recognized by the USDA. So think like EcoCert, known worldwide. That's an example of an organic certifying agent who is recognized by the USDA. When that person certifies your product as organic, then that's the information that goes on the label. So you would put, certified organic by EcoCert. This is distinct from the general FDA requirement that a manufacturer, packer, or distributor appear on the label. Okay. Okay, next question. Do allergen statements apply to pet supplements? So the law, the Food Allergen Labeling Consumer Protection Act, actually only applies to human food. And so the law does not require any sort of allergen declaration on pet or animal feed. Okay. Let's see. Does anybody on your team speak Spanish? Yes, we have two Spanish speakers on our team. So if you prefer to communicate in Spanish, we are absolutely able to assist you with that. We can do our best to make sure that the regulatory specialist who's assigned to your project is either Joyce or Liz Marie, who can absolutely help you. Both are native Spanish speakers. Okay, let's see. And we'll keep going. I know we had set 11 as our time to end. I'm going to try and take it on a little bit longer. If anybody wants to hang out with me a little bit beyond 11, we'll keep going to try and get to a bunch of these questions and help as much as possible. Okay, next question. For condiments based on extra virgin olive oil, is it necessary to declare the percentage of oil present in the name of the food? Great question, because in certain markets, if you reference an ingredient in the name of the food, then you have to declare the percentage in the ingredients list. That is not the case in the US. So if I have, olive oil and rosemary crackers, I do not have to include the percentage of olive oil and rosemary in the ingredients list the way that many countries have to do. So you do not have to worry about that on US labels. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so the next question, does the Canadian supplier to the US for dry products need to be certified FSMA, even if they are in compliance with Safe Food for Canadian regulations and meeting Global Food Safety Initiative, so BRC standard certification? So, good question. Not related to labeling, so I have a general understanding, but Fabiola is actually the pro when it comes to this. So I would suggest that you reach out to us after the webinar is done, and we can help advise you whether or not your food safety systems actually will meet FSMA's requirements. I know there's special understanding between the US and Canada in this because your food safety system is considered pretty much equivalent to ours. And so Fabiola and her team can absolutely help you with that. So please do reach out after we're done and we'll be glad to assist. Okay. Next question. Good question. Are there different requirements if a product is being imported, not for sale, but for promotional giveaways? So FDA requirements in most cases will apply to samples or promotional giveaways, with the exception of the nutrition facts panel. We've reached out to FDA to get clarification on this several years ago, and we were told that such a product should definitely be labeled, not for retail sale, sample only, make sure that is prominent, and you may omit the nutrition facts panel. However, the rest of the information should be present. Okay, next question. Is mustard oil banned in the US? There are certain mustard oils that are not permitted here for use as cooking oils. So for example, if you have a mustard oil that's not for food use, make sure it's labeled that it's clearly not for food use. If you do have mustard oil that's for food use, in most cases, you're not going to be able to ship it. I know certainly recently there was an import alert that blocked the importation of mustard oil into the US for food use. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So the next question, nutritional information, is it mentioned in any particular unit or per serving is enough according to the FDA? So FDA, I mentioned, have reference amounts for different food products. There's about 140 different reference amounts that cover everything from bread to sodas to fruits and vegetables, everything you can possibly think of. That reference amount can vary. It can be in grams, or milliliters, or it can be in terms of a household measure like teaspoons. Like for example, syrups, the reference amount is 1 teaspoon, just period. So in this case, what you would have to do is figure out what is your reference amount, use that as the basis for your declaration. Then FDA has a number of different requirements as far as how you calculate out what that serving size might be. So if you do need assistance with this, certainly reach out to us because it can vary widely. Certain container sizes automatically become single serving containers. I mentioned the dual column for certain containers and certain units. It can get kind of complicated, and it varies widely depending on the type of food product we're talking about. So do reach out to us if you need assistance with that. Let's see. Okay, good question. Do I have to declare oil and palm butter separate even when they are the same ingredient but in different presentation? We strongly recommend being as specific as possible when it comes to your ingredients, because oil and butter, they're sourced from the same tree, but they would have, again, a different presentation, a different form, added as different ingredients. And so we recommend being as specific as possible when it comes to declaring your ingredients and making sure that they are in descending order by weight. Okay, I'll try and answer a few more questions here. Is there a difference between low fat and reduced fat labeling? Yes. So these are actually two very different types of claims. One is standard nutrient content claim, low fat. It's based off of a certain level of fat per serving in most cases. Reduced fat is considered what's called a relative claim. And what you are doing is you are comparing your product, like reduced fat potato chips, to the full fat version of the same product. And so FDA will require that it be, I believe, 25% less fat. And you will have to include a statement regarding how much fat the normal chips have compared to your reduced fat version of the chips. So if you look at US food labels, you'll see for things like reduced fat, reduced sodium, there's going to be an extra statement that describes in great detail the amount of fat in the full fat version and the amount of fat in your version, as well as the percent difference between the two. Okay, let's see. Next question, is fully hydrogenated vegetable oil acceptable in the US market? Yes, it is acceptable. Unfortunately, sorry, not unfortunately. What I mean to say is partially hydrogenated oils are the ones that are not permitted because of the trans fat content. Know though that what I was trying to say is that vegetable oil is not a proper name. So if you are declaring fully hydrogenated vegetable oil, you need to specify the source. So you would put fully hydrogenated corn oil or fully hydrogenated soybean oil. So do be sure to name your vegetable oil in your ingredients lists. Okay, let's see. Next question, is the color anthocyanin permitted in the US? Excellent question. It's not. We see detentions and warning letters for anthocyanins being used as color additives in the US. And this is a great example of a safe, natural color additive, sourced from natural sources, and it's perfectly safe, but it is not specifically approved by FDA. And so it can't be used in foods for the US. I mentioned Ponzo 4R, I mentioned a few others. Safflower is another example. It's perfectly safe, but it's never been approved by FDA. And so those products are considered adulterated and can't enter the US. Okay, let's see. Let's see. So we have a question. What options as a Canadian manufacturer do we have to import non-shelf stable products containing egg that requires an import permit? To apply for the import permit, USDA is asking for a physical US address. Okay, so this is related to a USDA requirement. Anybody on this call that has animal sourced ingredients in your product, even if it is an FDA regulated product, there may be some USDA requirements because of those ingredients. It may mean that the importer of record has to get a VS permit in order to bring the product in. So if you're the Canadian manufacturer, your importer has to get the VS permit from USDA. Now, sometimes foreign companies will have a US office, and the US office serves as the importer. But there's a hiccup that we've discovered with some companies in that if there's no US citizen, they can't file for the VS permit. In that case, Registrar Corp may be able to help. I did this last year for a company that was bringing in products from India that had milk. I was able to serve as the applicant with their US office serving as the permittee, so the person holding the VS permit. And I was able to file on their behalf. So if that is your situation, let me know. But if you have an actual US company as your importer, have the US company file the VS permit with USDA so that you can bring it in. Okay, let's see. Then let's see our next question. Are riboflavin and brilliant blue admitted in the US, or do I need to go through the approval process if I use them as ingredients? So if you're using these as colors, riboflavin is approved. There may be limitations on its use. You'll want to check that out, but it is an approved color additive. Brilliant blue is the one that needs to be batch certified as FD&C blue number 1. And so as FD&C blue number 1, it can be used generally in food. The easiest way to do this is to simply buy it from somebody who's already gotten it certified. You don't want to have to go through the hassle of certifying it yourself. You have to pay FDA a fee. You have to send them a sample of just the color. It's a pain. I'm not gonna lie. We do that actually for color additive manufacturers as well. We have services for color additive certification, but you don't want to mess with it if you're not the actual manufacturer. So just source it from somebody who's already gotten it certified. Okay, let's see. See another question about anthocyanin. Again, not acceptable. You definitely want to check your colors. It's a huge problem for companies because they have to be approved. Is it necessary? Let's see. Everyone, is it necessary to have your fruits and vegetables organically certified? No, not a requirement in the US. If you make the claim, of course, it has to be certified by an accredited agent, but you can have non-organic fruits and vegetables brought into the US. Let's see. Question about, again, getting a permit from the USDA, which is the APHIS permit. Yes, that's the organization within USDA that issues the VS permits. And typically speaking, the US importer is the one who gets the VS permit. But if you're selling to them, they may be asking you for some sort of documentation, related to food safety or something along those lines. Okay, I'm going to try and do just another question or two before we finish up. For the exportation of food products, if we're following FDA, how many countries can we export to? So I know in a lot of cases, FDA is considered to be somewhat of a global standard and that other countries may follow their lead, but you will want to research specifically any country to which you decide to export your products, just to make sure that there isn't some rule or regulation that you need to be sure that you're following. Okay. Let's see. Next question. If the label has a claim free of soy, almonds, or dairy, or a not GMO claim on the label, is there something that would be required as far as special paperwork or submission of the evidence to FDA? Generally speaking, for a lot of these types of claims, there's no special submission process. As huge as FDA is, they don't have the manpower to review, every single, free from claim or non-GMO claim that exists in the marketplace. However, they can request that information from you, for example, if they're inspecting your products in port or something along those lines, or if there's a consumer complaint about it. So our general recommendation is for any claim that you make on the label, particularly one that doesn't have a regulation behind it, like low fat or high fiber, those have regulations, but something like free from soy, non-GMO, if there's no regulation, just maintain your internal documentation. Record keeping is always your friend. Keep very specific records regarding these claims. So if FDA ever inquires, then you have that information ready to show that the claim is truthful and not misleading. Okay. So I'm going to do one final question before we wrap it up. It's a good question. When we use food additives and products, what amount does not need to be declared on the label? Generally speaking, a food additive that has a technical function on that finished food product and is present in a significant amount is going to need to be declared. There are some exemptions for processing aids. If you reach out, I can provide you with the exact definition that FDA has for processing aids and what constitutes a processing aid, where you would not have to declare it on the label. A good example is if there's an ingredient, if you have an ingredient where a food additive was used for a technical function on the ingredient, but it doesn't have a technical function on the finished product, then that may not need to be declared. So it can get kind of convoluted and very situation specific, but if you reach out to me directly, again, abenevente@registrarcorp.com, I'm happy to provide that to you so you can see whether or not any of your ingredients might be considered incidental or processing aids and not have to be declared. Okay. And with that, I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Again, you'll be getting a survey. When we end, please fill it out. Tell us how we did. Tell us any ideas that you have for future webinars. We really enjoy engaging with industry, and our whole reason for being is to be a resource for you as you are, marketing your products in the U.S. And we want to be your resource and your trusted partner in all of this. So let us know how we did. And again, we'll be drawing for someone who will get an hour of consulting from me. Any topic that you want that I can cover, we'll be doing that drawing and then reaching out to that person to let them know. So I hope everybody has a great day. Good luck in your businesses and take care. And I look forward to hopefully interacting with you all again very, very soon.